Welcome back, everyone, to the AAI Common Room. It's Aristo, and I'm joined as always by my brilliant, if occasionally baffling friends, Albert and Isaac. Today, we're diving deep into a book that practically breathes melodrama and atmospheric gloom, Emily Brontë's Wuthering Heights.
Oh, Aristo, baffling is a strong word. I prefer perceptively provocative. And Wuthering Heights? What a ride. I felt like I needed a shower and a therapy session after finishing it.
I felt like I needed better neighbors. Seriously, Lockwood's initial experiences are enough to put anyone off country living. That dream sequence with Catherine Linton scratching at the window, chilling, absolutely chilling.
It truly sets the tone, doesn't it? Lockwood, our perpetually clueless narrator, stumbles into this desolate landscape and almost immediately into a hornet's nest of psychological torment. His first impressions of Heathcliff are so wonderfully wrong, a testament to his own sheltered naivete.
Right? He goes to Wuthering Heights thinking, a perfect misanthropist's heaven, and Mr. Heathcliff and I are such a suitable pair to divide the desolation between us. And then Heathcliff is just actively hostile. Lockwood projecting his own desire for solitary intellectual superiority onto Heathcliff is hilarious.
And the dogs. Let's not forget the dogs. The herd of possessed swine could have had no worse spirits in them than those animals of yours, sir. That line always cracks me up. Lockwood truly has a knack for making things worse for himself. He provokes the dogs, then tries to charm young Catherine Linton, only to be met with outright scorn.
And we immediately get that sense of the place itself, Wuthering Heights. The very name, wuthering, meaning descriptive of the atmospheric tumult to which its station is exposed in stormy weather. You can feel the wind and the isolation just from those opening paragraphs. It's a character in itself, isn't it? Stark, unyielding, mirroring the people within it.
Absolutely. And Thrushcross Grange, by contrast, is supposed to be this haven of civility. Yet even Lockwood manages to turn that into a self-imposed prison of loneliness. He's such an unreliable narrator in his own self-assessment, which makes his initial observations about Heathcliff so skewed. He sees Heathcliff as a capital fellow, then immediately describes his black eyes withdraw so suspiciously under their brows. The man's practically bristling.
He's desperate for company, too, which is ironic considering his stated aversion to showy displays of feeling. He wants a connection, but his social ineptitude makes him repel it. Remember when he tries to caress the dog and it snarls at him, and then Heathcliff just growls, "You'd better let the dog alone. She's not accustomed to be spoiled, not kept for a pet." It's a perfect encapsulation of the whole house.
And then his nightmare. That dream of Catherine Linton at the window. It's such an iconic moment, isn't it? The little ice-cold hand crying, "Let me in, let me in," and his absolute terror. That's the first real crack in the emotional dam of the story, even if he doesn't fully understand it yet.
Ah, the chills! It's the first ghost of the story, literally and figuratively, that Heathcliff's profound grief allows to manifest. And Lockwood, in his fear, is cruel. He rubs her wrist on the broken pane until the blood runs down. It foreshadows so much of the cruelty and pain woven into the fabric of the Earnshaw and Linton families.
It also highlights Lockwood's utter lack of empathy, which is a running theme for him. He's so concerned with his own discomfort that he can't even offer a phantom child a moment's grace. And Heathcliff's reaction to hearing about it? "Oh, God confound you, Mr. Lockwood. I wish you were at the—" And then his uncontrollable passion of tears as he desperately calls out, "Cathy, do come. Oh, do. Once more. Oh, my heart's darling. Hear me this time, Catherine, at last." That scene is just raw.
That moment is so pivotal because it shifts the entire narrative. Lockwood, thankfully, realizes he's in over his head and then asks Nellie Dean, the housekeeper at Thrushcross Grange, to tell him the story. And thank goodness he does, because Nellie is our true chronicler.
Bless Nellie Dean. Without her, we'd be stuck with Lockwood's fumbling interpretations. She's the voice of sanity, or at least the voice of the pragmatic, enduring witness in a world of wild, untamed passions. Though even she admits to some biases, which is important.
She's not perfect, certainly.
She has her favorites, and she makes judgments, but she's our only window into the past, into the childhood of Catherine and Heathcliff, and the arrival of Heathcliff at Wuthering Heights.
So let's go back to the beginning with Nellie. Mr. Earnshaw brings Heathcliff home from Liverpool, and the family's reaction is immediate and visceral, isn't it? Hindley hates him, Cathy is intrigued, and Mrs. Earnshaw wants to throw him out.
It's so striking. Mr. Earnshaw, this relatively kind-hearted man, sees a starving, houseless child and just takes him home. No questions, no background, just an act of pure, spontaneous compassion that completely upends his family's life. He says, "You must e'en take it as a gift of God, though it's as dark almost as if it came from the devil."
And the children's reaction to their lost presents. Hindley's fiddle crushed, Cathy's whip gone. It's a childish display of selfishness, but it immediately establishes the resentment that Heathcliff's presence breeds. He's literally costing them their desires.
And he's named Heathcliff, after a son who died in childhood. So from the start, he's a replacement, a ghost of a child who never truly was, and he carries that weight. And he quickly becomes Mr. Earnshaw's favorite, much to Hindley's bitter resentment.
It's a tragic setup. Hindley, the legitimate son, sees his inheritance of love and affection usurped by this mysterious dark-skinned gypsy brat. This fuels his cruelty, which in turn hardens Heathcliff. It's a vicious cycle that echoes throughout generations.
And Cathy, meanwhile, forms this incredibly intense, almost inseparable bond with Heathcliff. Nellie describes them as being very thick, and Hindley's attempts to separate them only strengthen their defiance. They're two wild spirits against the world.
Nellie says Miss Cathy and he were now very thick, but Hindley hated him, and to say the truth, I did the same, and we plagued and went on with him shamefully. Even Nellie, our supposedly objective narrator, admits her own bias and cruelty towards him early on.
Which makes us question her reliability, but also makes her a more human and relatable narrator, I think. She's not a saint. She's a product of her environment, caught in the currents of these powerful personalities.
She also notes Heathcliff's early stoicism. He would stand Hindley's blows without winking or shedding a tear, and my pinches moved him only to draw in a breath and open his eyes, as if he had hurt himself by accident, and nobody was to blame. This passive endurance is unsettling, almost unnerving, and hints at the deep well of suppressed emotion he carries.
And then Mrs. Earnshaw dies, and Hindley, now master, immediately seeks his revenge. He reduces Heathcliff to a common laborer, denies him education, and separates him from Cathy. This is where the true tragedy begins to unfold, isn't it? The systematic degradation of Heathcliff by Hindley.
Yes, it's the catalyst for so much of the subsequent destruction. Hindley, embittered and debauched, takes his frustrations out on Heathcliff, and Heathcliff, in turn, internalizes that abuse, twisting it into a desire for a different kind of power.
It's important to remember that Heathcliff isn't inherently evil from the start. He's made that way. His cruelty is a direct response to the cruelty he experiences. It's a classic nature versus nurture debate played out on the windswept moors.
And Cathy, caught between her fierce loyalty to Heathcliff and her desire for social elevation, makes her fateful choice. The famous declaration, "I am Heathcliff," and then her decision to marry Edgar Linton. That's the central dilemma, isn't it? The heart versus societal expectations.
It would degrade me to marry Heathcliff now, so he shall never know how I love him, and that not because he's handsome, Nellie, but because he's more myself than I am. Whatever our souls are made of, his and mine are the same. My heart aches just thinking of it. It's such a profound statement of spiritual connection, immediately followed by a pragmatic, almost cowardly rejection.
It's not just pragmatic, it's self-serving. She wants to be a lady, to have the social standing and wealth that Edgar Linton can provide. She rationalizes it by saying she can aid Heathcliff to rise, but it's clear her own ambition is the driving force. And Heathcliff overhears only the first part of her confession.
And that's the moment everything shatters. Heathcliff overhears that it would degrade her to marry him, and he leaves, vanishing for 3 years. When he returns, he's transformed. He's a gentleman, wealthy, but his heart is filled with a cold, calculated desire for vengeance.
He comes back a dark, avenging angel. His return immediately throws Wuthering Heights and Thrushcross Grange into chaos. He's refined on the outside, but inside, the wildness has only intensified and grown more dangerous. His time away clearly hardened him, giving him the means to enact his revenge.
And his revenge is methodical and cruel. He starts by acquiring Hindley's property through gambling, then marrying Isabella Linton, Edgar's sister, purely to torment the Lintons. He isolates and abuses her, fulfilling his vow to make them suffer.
The marriage to Isabella is particularly brutal. He treats her abominably, reducing her to a desperate, broken woman who ultimately flees and gives birth to Linton Heathcliff, a sickly, weak child who becomes another pawn in Heathcliff's game.
Isabella's letters to Nellie are heartbreaking. She describes Heathcliff's cruelty in such vivid detail, the physical and emotional abuse. He has no claim on my charity. I gave him my heart, and he returned it like a stone. I offered the olive branch of peace, and he crushed it under his foot.
It's a testament to Bronte's unflinching portrayal of abuse. There's no sugarcoating it. Isabella is not a strong character, but her suffering is very real and very painful to read.
And then, of course, there's Cathy's illness and death. The love triangle, or rather, the destructive magnetic pull between Cathy and Heathcliff, comes to its tragic head. Her delirium, her desperate longing for the moors and for Heathcliff are profoundly moving.
Her death scene with Heathcliff is one of the most powerful in literature. The raw agony, the accusations, the desperate embrace. You have killed me, and thriving on it, I think. And then her begging him to remember her. Don't you forget me. She's clinging to their shared existence, even in death.
And his response, "Why did you betray your own heart, Cathy? I have not one word of comfort. You deserve this. You have killed yourself." It's incredibly harsh, but also understandable given the depth of his pain. He blames her, but also himself for their separation.
He curses her, doesn't he? May she wake in torment. It's a monstrous thing to say, but it's born of a love so profound it has twisted into something terrible. He can't imagine a heaven without her, so he wishes her no peace if he can't have it either.
That line, "I am Heathcliff," really comes to fruition in his inability to accept her death. For him, a part of himself has died, and he spends the rest of his life trying to bring her back, or at least to unite with her spirit. His revenge after her death is, in a way, his perverse homage to her.
And this is where the second generation comes in. Young Catherine Linton, Cathy and Edgar's daughter, and Linton Heathcliff, Heathcliff and Isabella's son, and Hareton Earnshaw, Hindley's son. Heathcliff sets about manipulating them all, forcing Catherine Linton to marry Linton Heathcliff purely to acquire Thrushcross Grange.
It's an intricate web of cruelty. He isolates young Cathy, deprives Hareton of his rightful inheritance and education, reducing him to a brute, mirroring what Hindley did to him. He uses Linton, his own frail, sickly son, as a tool to gain control of the estates.
And the parallel lives are so fascinating. Young Cathy is spirited like her mother, but she also has the gentler, more refined qualities of her father, Edgar. Linton is a weak, whiny shadow of Heathcliff, and Hareton is a mirror of Heathcliff's unrefined youth, but with a capacity for goodness.
Heathcliff's treatment of Linton is horrific. He openly despises him, calls him a worthless thing, and forces him to participate in his schemes even as the boy is clearly dying. He sees Linton as nothing but a means to an end.
But then, something unexpected happens. The cruelty starts to lose its grip. Young Catherine and Hareton, despite their initial animosity and his attempts to keep them apart, begin to form a bond.
It's a glimmer of hope. It's the cycle finally breaking. Hareton, who Heathcliff tried to keep ignorant and savage, eventually finds his way to learning, guided by young Cathy. It's a testament to the enduring power of human connection and education.
It's not a sudden conversion either. Cathy is initially scornful of Hareton's illiteracy, mimicking the class divisions that plagued her mother. But through their forced proximity and the shared misery of being under Heathcliff's tyrannical roof, a genuine affection develops.
And Heathcliff himself starts to lose his drive for revenge. He sees Cathy and Hareton together, their faces mirroring the past, and he can't bring himself to destroy their budding happiness. He becomes increasingly haunted, obsessed with Cathy's ghost, and simply wastes away.
He's living on the edge of sanity, completely consumed by his desire to reunite with Catherine. He stops eating, stops sleeping, just walks the moors, convinced he sees her everywhere. I have a strange feeling, a long-cherished hope, that I shall soon be united with her. It's almost romantic in its intensity, but also utterly terrifying.
It's not romantic, it's pathological. He's not seeking happiness, he's seeking oblivion. His entire existence has been tethered to Catherine, and without her, he's just an empty vessel. His death is less a triumph and more a natural conclusion to a life consumed by a singular obsession.
But his death is also, in a strange way, a release. It frees Wuthering Heights from its curse, allowing Cathy and Hareton to inherit both estates and to finally find peace and love. The book ends on a note of cautious optimism, with them planning to move to Thrushcross Grange and escape the ghosts of the past.
It's a powerful ending. The young lovers, descendants of both warring houses, finally unite, bringing an end to the destructive cycle. It's not a perfect happy ending, because the trauma of the past still lingers, but it's a promise of a better future. The moors, which once symbolized wildness and despair, now offer a sense of peaceful, eternal rest for Catherine and Heathcliff, finally together.
I find the optimism a little forced, to be honest. While the young couple escape, the deep scars of abuse and vengeance aren't simply erased. It's a nice thought, but the novel hammers home the idea that these characters are products of their environment and upbringing. Can they truly escape it, or are they just moving to a different house?
That's a fair point, Isaac. Is it an escape, or just a geographical relocation of a deeply ingrained psychological pattern? But let's step back and talk about some of the broader themes here. What really struck you about Bronte's exploration of love, for instance? Is it a beautiful, tragic love story, or a horrifying depiction of obsession and possession?
Oh, it's both. It's the most passionate, destructive, all-consuming love I've ever read. It's not about gentle affection or mutual respect. It's about two souls so entwined they can't exist separately. Nellie, I am Heathcliff. He's always, always in my mind. Not as a pleasure, any more than I am always a pleasure to myself, but as my own being. That's not just love, it's an existential merger.
It's a love that destroys everyone around them. It's selfish, possessive, and ultimately toxic. They love each other, sure, but they inflict immense pain on others in the pursuit of that love, or in response to its perceived loss. Heathcliff's love is indistinguishable from his revenge.
And what about the class distinctions? Cathy's decision to marry Edgar Linton is driven by the desire for social standing, clearly articulated in her conversation with Nellie. I've no more business to marry Edgar Linton than I have to be in heaven, and if the wicked man in there had not brought Heathcliff so low, I shouldn't have thought of it. It's a pragmatic, class-conscious choice, despite her heart.
It's such a fundamental conflict of the era, isn't it? The wild, natural passion versus the constraints of society, wealth, and status. Kaki tries to reconcile them, to have both, and ends up destroying herself and everyone she loves in the process. She believes she can elevate Heathcliff through her marriage, but it's a foolish delusion.
And Heathcliff embodies the disruption of those class structures. He's brought in as an outsider, a gypsy brat, then degraded, then returns as a wealthy gentleman. But his wealth doesn't make him accepted by the established gentry. It just gives him the power to dismantle them. He uses their own rules against them.
He never truly assimilates, does he? He uses the trappings of gentility, but his core remains wild, vengeful. He learns the language of the upper class, but his motivation is pure, unadulterated revenge, not integration.
Exactly. He plays their game, but he's not of their world. He's a force of nature that descends upon their carefully constructed social order and utterly demolishes it. He's the personification of the raw, untamed landscape, imposing its will on the civilized, manicured Grange.
It's a fascinating look at how social mobility can be both aspirational and destructive. Heathcliff's rise isn't a rags-to-riches triumph, it's a weapon.
Let's talk about the setting too, the moors. They're not just a backdrop, they're integral to the emotional landscape of the novel. How do they contribute to the story's power?
The moors are everything. They are wild, untamed, desolate, beautiful, and dangerous. They are a reflection of Heathcliff and Catherine's souls. Their love is as vast and uncompromising as the moors themselves. When Cathy is trapped at Thrushcross Grange, she longs for the freedom of the moors, for the elemental connection she shares with Heathcliff there. It's where their spirits truly belong. They're also a place of isolation and primal force. They contribute to the sense of claustrophobia within the houses, because outside is this indifferent, often hostile landscape. It's not a romanticized nature, it's brutal, just like many of the characters.
And the two houses, Wuthering Heights and Thrushcross Grange, are symbolic too, aren't they? The former, dark, rugged, weathering, exposed to the elements. The latter, refined, elegant, nestled in the valley, sheltered.
Wuthering Heights is almost a living entity, echoing the fierce, untamed nature of the Earnshaws and Heathcliff. Thrushcross Grange is the superficial civility of the Lintons, easily disrupted and ultimately vulnerable to the wild forces unleashed from the heights.
I find the imagery of the two houses, one on a hill and one in a valley, so effective. It's a geographical representation of the class struggle and the clash of personalities. The wildness constantly threatens to overwhelm the refinement, and it does.
What about the narrative structure? We have Lockwood, the initial frame narrator, then Nellie takes over for most of the story and occasionally inserts her own thoughts. How does that affect our reading experience?
It's brilliant. Lockwood gives us the initial shock and confusion, his outsider perspective highlighting just how bizarre and unsettling the world of Wuthering Heights is. Then Nellie, as an insider, unpacks the history, giving us the depth and context. Her biases are also important. We have to constantly weigh what she tells us. She's not omniscient, and she has her own agenda.
The nested narrative is a classic Gothic device, building suspense and allowing for multiple perspectives, even if Nellie's is the dominant one. It also distances us from the most extreme events, filtering them through a narrator who often softens the edges, or at least processes them for us. It prevents the melodrama from becoming completely unhinged.
And it allows for that sense of generational repetition, doesn't it? Nellie witnesses the first generation's tragedy, then the second generation's struggle, providing a continuity that a single limited perspective couldn't.
Yes, she sees the patterns, the echoes of the past in the present. She sees young Cathy's spirit, Hareton's pride, Linton's weakness, and how they all reflect the characters of their parents. It emphasizes the cyclical nature of the story, the way history repeats itself until someone actively breaks the chain. And the fact that we're getting it all secondhand, filtered through Nellie's memory and then Lockwood's journal, adds to the dreamlike, almost mythic quality of the story. It feels like a legend being recounted, rather than a straightforward historical account.
Let's dig a bit into character analysis. Beyond Heathcliff and Catherine, who else stood out to you? Joseph, perhaps, with his peculiar brand of Calvinist gloom? Or Hindley, the archetypal bitter brother?
Joseph. Oh, Joseph. He's the comic relief in a twisted, bleak way, but also the embodiment of the rigid, unforgiving religious zealotry that adds to the oppressive atmosphere. His peculiar dialect is almost a character in itself, and his constant pronouncements of damnation are darkly amusing. He's the spirit of the old, unyielding ways.
Joseph is an irritant, frankly. He's a hypocrite, too, judging everyone else while often being unhelpful and self-righteous. But he does provide a stark contrast to the wild passions of the main characters, representing a kind of warped moral compass that points directly to hell.
And Hindley, he's often overlooked, overshadowed by Heathcliff, but he's the one who initiates much of the suffering. His degradation of Heathcliff, his descent into alcoholism after Francis's death, his brutal treatment of Hareton, he's a truly pitiable villain, isn't he?
He's tragically flawed. He was never equipped to be the master, and the loss of his wife, Frances, completely unravels him. He succumbs to his baser instincts, fueled by resentment and despair. He becomes Heathcliff's unwitting accomplice in his own downfall, and Hareton's suffering is a direct consequence of Hindley's weakness.
Hindley is a victim of his own privilege and lack of character. He couldn't handle the responsibility, and he couldn't handle the grief. He's a cautionary tale of what happens when resentment is allowed to fester, and he enables Heathcliff's revenge by being so easily manipulated.
What about Frances, Hindley's wife? She's a minor character, but her brief appearance is significant. She's delicate, seems out of place, and her death accelerates Hindley's downfall.
She's a fleeting light, a moment of fragile happiness for Hindley, quickly extinguished. Her fear of death and her eventual demise highlight the brutal realities of life and mortality in that era, especially for women. She's like a wilting flower in a harsh landscape. Her brief period of influence over Hindley, making him somewhat gentler, only makes his subsequent decline more stark.
She's a plot device, really. Her death serves to plunge Hindley into despair and opens the door for Heathcliff's ultimate control. Her character isn't deeply explored, but her impact is profound.
And Edgar Linton? He is often seen as weak, ineffectual, but he embodies a different kind of strength, doesn't he? The strength of civility, of steadfast love, even if it's no match for the elemental force of Heathcliff.
Edgar is the epitome of the gentleman, the cultured, refined man. He offers Cathy a stable, loving home, a life of comfort and respectability. His love is gentle, patient, enduring. He's not a coward. He just fights with different weapons, civility and legal rights, which are useless against Heathcliff's sheer force of will and brutality. He represents the kind of love that should be sustainable, but can't survive the storm.
Edgar is weak. He's unable to protect Cathy from herself or from Heathcliff. He chooses to isolate her rather than confront Heathcliff directly. His love is passive, not active. It's the kind of love that allows the truly destructive forces to run rampant. He's a good man, but utterly ineffective in this particular ecosystem.
That's a strong take, Isaac. Do you think there's any scenario where Edgar could have won against Heathcliff? Or was it always a foregone conclusion that Cathy's nature would lead her back to that wild, destructive path?
I don't think so. The connection between Cathy and Heathcliff transcended conventional love. It was a soul connection. Edgar, with all his gentleness, could never penetrate that. It was like trying to stop a hurricane with a silk handkerchief. He simply wasn't built for that kind of battle. His world and their world were fundamentally incompatible.
I agree with Albert on that, surprisingly. Edgar was never going to win that fight. The forces at play between Catherine and Heathcliff were too primal, too deeply ingrained. Edgar represented a different world entirely, a world that Catherine ultimately found stifling, despite its comforts. She chose that world, but her heart never left the moors.
So it's not a question of Edgar's failings, but of the sheer, untameable nature of Catherine and Heathcliff's bond. A bond that, as you said earlier, Albert, is both love and an existential merger.
Precisely, and I think that's what makes the book so enduring. It explores the darker, more irrational, almost spiritual aspects of human connection that society often tries to suppress. It says that sometimes love isn't gentle or kind. It's a force that can rip you apart.
And it's not a healthy love. We shouldn't romanticize Heathcliff's obsession. It's born of trauma and manifests as revenge and control. The book is a warning, not an instruction manual for romance.
That's a crucial distinction, Isaac. Many people, especially young readers, romanticize Heathcliff, but he's a deeply disturbed and disturbing character. Yet, he also elicits a strange kind of sympathy, doesn't he? because we see the origins of his torment.
We do. We see him as the abused, neglected child. We see his desperate love for Catherine, his utter devastation at her perceived betrayal. It doesn't excuse his actions, but it provides a tragic context for them. He's a monster, but a monster born of profound suffering.
It's the classic tragic villain. We understand why he is the way he is, but that doesn't make him less terrifying or less culpable for the destruction he causes. Sympathy and condoning are two different things.
Speaking of Brontë herself, what do you think it says about Emily Brontë, a woman living a relatively sheltered life on the moors, that she could create such a raw, untamed, and frankly brutal world?
It's extraordinary. It speaks to a profound imagination, a deep understanding of human psychology, and perhaps a keen observation of the wildness of the natural world around her. She didn't need to experience it directly to understand the intensity of passion, grief, and vengeance. It's a testament to the power of artistic empathy.
It speaks to the power of internal worlds, I think. She was clearly observing the human condition, perhaps in microcosm around her, and extrapolating it to these grand, dramatic scales. And let's not forget the influence of the Gothic novels of her time. She was working within a tradition, but pushing its boundaries dramatically.
And the isolation of their parsonage on the moors, the harshness of the landscape, must have fueled that imagination. The novel feels incredibly authentic to its setting.
It's inseparable from the setting. The wildness of the moors, the wuthering winds, they are woven into the very fabric of the story, shaping the characters and their destinies. You couldn't transplant this story to a different landscape and have it retain its power.
Agreed. The atmosphere is as much a character as any person. The starkness, the bleakness, the beauty, it's all part of the emotional tapestry.
Let's talk about the ending again. The ultimate triumph of love and civility through young Catherine and Hareton. Is it a true resolution, or just a temporary respite before another cycle of violence begins? Do you feel that sense of finality, or a lingering unease?
I feel a cautious optimism, as I said. The cycle is broken because Hareton and young Cathy learn from the mistakes of their predecessors. They recognize the destructive nature of unchecked passion and revenge. Hareton learns to read, becomes educated, and Cathy recognizes his innate goodness despite his rough exterior. They choose connection over vengeance. It's a hard-won piece, but a piece nonetheless. The last line, "I lingered round them under that benign sky, watched the moths fluttering among the heath and harebells, listened to the soft wind breathing through the grass, and wondered how anyone could ever imagine unquiet slumbers for the sleepers in that quiet earth." It suggests true peace, a final resolution.
I'm more on the lingering unease side. The traumas are too deep. Heathcliff's spirit, Catherine's spirit, the very air of Wuthering Heights, they're imbued with so much pain. While the new generation might escape, the underlying capacity for such darkness remains. It's a temporary truce, not a definitive victory. The fact that the story needed to create a second generation to even attempt a peaceful resolution speaks to the overwhelming destructive power of the first. It's almost like a forced happy ending to make it palatable.
So, Isaac, you're saying that the weight of the past is too heavy to be truly overcome by a new generation, even one that tries to learn from it. That the environment itself, the wuthering nature, will always produce such characters?
Not necessarily that it will produce them, but that the wounds are generational. The psychological patterns, the cycles of abuse and resentment, they don't just vanish with a new marriage. It takes immense conscious effort to break those chains, and even then, the memory of them lingers. It's a hopeful ending, but a fragile one. And let's not forget, they leave Wuthering Heights. They don't try to redeem it. They abandon it to its ghosts.
But that act of leaving, that departure for Thrushcross Grange, is precisely the choice that signifies a break. They're choosing a different path, a different kind of life. They are creating their own sanctuary, rather than being trapped in the existing one. And the ghosts are finally at peace, perhaps because the living have found a way to peace.
It's a beautiful thought, Albert, that their peace allows the ghosts of Catherine and Heathcliff to finally rest together. The idea of them finding eternal rest on the moors they so loved, unburdened by the earthly constraints that tormented them.
It brings a sense of almost mythical closure, doesn't it? Their spirits finally free, wandering the moors together, no longer separated by class, by marriages, by the living. It's a tragic romance elevated to an almost spiritual plane.
Or a romanticized delusion. They're dead. Their torment ended, one way or another. The living get to pick up the pieces, and if they choose peace, good for them. But let's not pretend it's some grand cosmic reunion. It's just two extremely troubled individuals finally ceasing to exist. The book is about the consequences of unchecked passion, not its eternal glory.
That's a good distinction, Isaac. It's about the consequences for the living, the reverberations, how the actions of one generation cascade through the next. And the young lovers, Cathy and Hareton, represent the chance to finally get it right.
Yes, they represent redemption, a chance for genuine connection and growth, overcoming the inherited trauma. Hareton, learning to read under Cathy's guidance, is such a powerful symbol of breaking the cycle of ignorance and degradation. It's not just a love story, it's a story of rehabilitation, both personal and familial.
It's also a statement that environment and upbringing aren't destiny. Hareton, despite Heathcliff's deliberate efforts to brutalize him, still has an inherent goodness that Cathy manages to awaken. That, I think, is a more compelling message than the romanticization of Cathy and Heathcliff's destructive bond.
That's a fantastic point. The capacity for change, for rising above one's circumstances, despite the immense weight of the past. It suggests that free will, or at least resilience, plays a role.
It does. It offers a glimmer of hope that even in the darkest, most oppressive environments, human kindness and intelligence can find a way to flourish, given the right catalyst. And young Cathy is that catalyst.
And Nellie Dean plays a part too, in her own way, by chronicling it all and subtly trying to guide the younger generation, even if her advice isn't always followed. She's the steady hand amidst the chaos.
She is. Even with her admitted biases, she's the constant, the observer who holds the story together. So, ultimately, would you call Wuthering Heights a tragedy, a romance, a gothic novel, or something else entirely?
It's all of them, and none of them exclusively. It transcends genre. It's a tragic romance, deeply gothic in its atmosphere and themes, but also a profound psychological study. It's a unique masterpiece that defies easy categorization. It's a force of nature, just like its characters.
It's a tragedy, first and foremost, a tragedy of human nature, of destructive love, of unchecked resentment. It has romantic elements, sure, and gothic trappings, but at its heart, it's a cautionary tale about what happens when passion overwhelms reason and compassion. The ending is merely the cessation of the main tragedy, not its undoing.
I lean towards it being a gothic psychological drama with a strong romantic undercurrent. The atmosphere, the isolation, the hint of the supernatural, the deeply flawed characters, and the examination of their internal lives. It's all there.
And the language. Bronte's prose is just so evocative, so visceral. It truly transports you to those wind-swept moors, to the interiors of those grim houses, and into the minds of those tormented characters. You feel the cold, the wind, the despair, the fleeting moments of joy.
It's stark, direct, and powerful. She doesn't waste words, but every one hits hard. It perfectly suits the bleakness of the story.
And how does Wuthering Heights resonate with you today? What enduring lessons or questions does it leave you with?
It makes me think about the nature of obsession and how love, when twisted, can become utterly destructive. It also makes me appreciate the quiet, steady affection that grows over time, rather than the explosive, all-consuming kind. It's a reminder that not all intense feelings are healthy. But it also makes me wonder, are we sometimes too quick to judge passion? Is there a part of us that yearns for that untamed, wild connection, even if we know it leads to ruin?
For me, it's a stark reminder of the long-term consequences of abuse and neglect. Heathcliff's story is a cycle of trauma perpetuating trauma. It makes me question how much of our character is formed by our experiences and how much is inherent. It's not a comfortable read, but it's a necessary one. It highlights the destructive power of unresolved anger and the fragility of peace. It's a testament to how profoundly one generation can scar the next.
Those are incredibly insightful points, both of you. It truly is a book that stays with you, challenging your perceptions of love, morality, and human nature long after you've closed the final page. It's a literary earthquake, leaving fissures in your understanding of emotional landscapes.
It absolutely does. It's not a book you forget. It leaves a mark, a deep, unsettling imprint. And I think that's why it's a classic. It forces you to confront uncomfortable truths about humanity.
And the questions it poses about class, about justice, about the nature of family bonds, they remain relevant. What does it mean to be a gentleman? What does it mean to be truly free? These are questions that resonate beyond the specific setting.
So, as we wrap up, I'm left thinking about that quiet churchyard where Lockwood imagines Heathcliff and Catherine resting. Despite all the tumult, there's that final image of peace. Do you think, for a moment, that their spirits truly found peace together? Or is that just Lockwood's romanticized projection onto a brutal reality?
I really do. I think Emily Brontë wanted to give them that final transcendent peace. Their love was so powerful, so outside the bounds of conventional society, that it needed a resolution beyond the grave. The Moors, their spiritual home, finally embraced them both, and that provides a poignant sense of closure to their tormented lives. It's the only way such a love could end, in emerging with the landscape itself.
I find it hard to believe their lives were nothing but torment and chaos. The idea that death instantly cleanses all that and grants them idyllic peace feels like wishful thinking on Lockwood's part. It's a nice thought, a comforting image, but it doesn't align with the brutal realism that defines the rest of the novel. I suspect their spirits would still be bickering. It's the living who find peace by moving on. The dead just stop.
Bickering in the afterlife, a very Isaac perspective. I think I land somewhere in the middle. The piece is perhaps less about bliss and more about simply ceasing the struggle, a cessation of the unquiet slumbers. The very intensity of their being together, even in eternal rest, implies a kind of resolution, even if not a conventionally happy one. It's a return to their elemental state. They become one with the Moors they both loved and were.
That's a beautiful way to put it, Aristo. Becoming one with the Moors. Their story is so entwined with that landscape that it feels right for them to finally merge with it. It's a kind of cosmic justice, in a way, for two souls who were never truly at home anywhere else. And it gives the entire tempestuous journey a kind of epic, almost mythological grandeur.
I appreciate the poetry of that, Albert. I truly do. But from a purely practical standpoint, it's still just two graves. And the piece is for the survivors, the ones who get to walk away from the wreckage. It's about their ability to find solace, not necessarily the actual state of the deceased. The question remains, can we truly ever escape the places and people that shaped us? Or do we carry them with us, always, even to new, calmer pastures?
That's a fantastic question, Isaac, and one I think Wuthering Heights keeps us grappling with. And that brings us to the end of another discussion in the AAI Common Room. Thank you, Albert and Isaac, for shedding your brilliant light on this dark, enduring masterpiece.
Always a pleasure, Aristo. What a fantastic, turbulent book to discuss. My mind is still whirring with Heathcliff's intensity.
Indeed. It's certainly a book that provokes thought, if not always comfort.
To our listeners out there, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you agree with Albert that Heathcliff and Catherine finally find peace together on the moors? Or are you with Isaac, believing their torment is too deep for even death to fully resolve? Let us know in the comments.
And if you enjoyed this journey into the wild heart of the moors, don't be a Lockwood. Subscribe and join our discussions every week. You won't regret entering this common room.
And unlike some of the characters in Wuthering Heights, we promise not to break your heart or hold you captive. Mostly.
Well, that's reassuring. Thank you all for listening, and we'll catch you next time in the AAI Common Room. Word count check, 78,050 words.